Good morning, team. This is Team Leader Natalie here, and this is the next fitness thing. We usually don't have class on a Tuesday, but this week is a very special week. We are trying to kick July off with a wonderful start to your fitness, your health, both physical health, mental health, spiritual health. There are so many things going on right now at the next fitness thing, and we would be delighted for you to join us. But for today, we are going to be introducing two of our other team leaders who typically have classes over on thenextfitnessthing.com. One of them is team leader Anna, and the other one is, oh my gosh, I messed up. She is not a team leader anymore. She is now a certified personal trainer, Kacey. I just realized that as I'm putting this video together. So we have both another team leader and a fabulous, brand new certified personal trainer. And you're going to hear a little bit more about each of them in what we like to call our AMA walks. So it's an Ask Me Anything walk that has been put together by each of these lovely ladies, and you get to hear all about them starting now.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Next Fitness Thing. This is Team Leader Anna from New York, and you're here with me for my first ever AMA walk, or Ask Me Anything walk. Woot woot! If you're outside and want to track your distance, make sure the GPS on your fitness tracker is on and Wi-Fi is off. If you're inside or getting your cardio in via a different method, let's do what it takes to do your best. Please be aware of your surroundings and adjust your volume settings at the bottom of the screen as needed. Now, brace your core, relax your shoulders, and hold your head high. Ready? Let's go. As with all of these AMA walks, I have some questions that I'll be answering today. It's kind of interesting being on the other side of the class for this. So here we go. The first question I have is, what is your everyday must-have? So if I'm going anywhere, I always have to have a water bottle, and then depending on where I'm going, which is most places anyway, I always have to have a book on me. So really just a water bottle and a book, and then I am set. Of course, there's a time and a place for for at least the book, but if I don't have a water bottle on me, I feel very, very naked. Um, I I really don't like buying bottled water, and with where I live in the surrounding areas, I know the water is safe to drink, so that's definitely an element where I don't want to contribute to the plastic bottle problem with climate change and all that, but those are the really big things. And of course, always have to have my phone. Communication purposes, that's a big thing. And then with a book, I mean, I just went out to a friend's camp the other day, and my friend got her tablet out to start reading an ebook, and I was like, I'm going to take her lead. I'm going to start reading mine. Granted, I only read probably about 4 pages before I walked away, but regardless, if I know I'm going to be in a waiting room, or I don't know, if I'm going to be waiting for someone in general, I'd rather not be on my phone flipping through Instagram like I tend to do. I'd rather have a book to keep me company. Plus, if my attention needs to be drawn to something else pretty quick, I definitely have that ability with a book. Next question. What is your history with injury? I am one of those people where if I'm learning something new or if I'm learning a life lesson, I take that very seriously. So other than some very minor injuries where I've been able to fully recover like nothing ever happened, I've never had an injury before. Like I've never had to go in for surgery that's to repair a body part. Of course, I've gone to the dentist and had tooth work, but that's the extent of it. I witnessed enough people breaking their arms or breaking something with their leg, and I'm like, no, thank you, that doesn't look fun. I'm learning my lesson now. With the sports like with downhill skiing or cross country skiing, I've always tended to be pretty self aware over what I'm doing, being aware of my surroundings, trying to stay in control. If I'm not in control over anything, I'm not I'm not a happy camper. And I've witnessed quite a few people get hurt, and they're not necessarily doing silly things, but nothing to me is more humiliating, and I'm sure it is for everyone who has to experience this, but for me, nothing is more humiliating than being dragged down on a sled because I can't move. So that is probably the most active activity, I guess you could say, where I could get hurt pretty quickly, but I also learned very quickly, okay, like this is how you can be smart about it. And of course there are accidents, but I'm pretty reserved. My husband likes to make fun of me over the fact that unless I'm very confident in what I'm about to do, I don't like to do something. So that's my toxic trait. But when it comes to like working out in the gym or working out on TNFT, I've always been pretty aware of body form and what can help protect certain parts of my body, such as making sure that my knees don't go over my feet in the squat. So I learned, okay, let's protect my knee. Like let's do that. But of course, I've had accidents. So I think the most traumatic injury I've ever had was I was at my parents' house when I was probably in middle school, sixth grade. And it was a really windy day, and my parents' front door is a very thick door, and my finger got caught in the door. The door slammed shut, and that resulted in an emergency room visit. My mom was able to drive me where my fingernail got removed in stitches. So yeah, it's lovely, but I think that was the most traumatic injury I've ever had. I've always tried to be very self-aware of what I'm doing because I know what I don't want. So let's knock on wood, let's hope that that continues. Where is your favorite place to vacation? Or where have you always wanted to go and haven't yet? I don't think I have a favorite place to vacation. I definitely have locations where I'd travel to over and over again, but if another opportunity for another location came up, I'd be like, yep, sign me up. I lived in northwestern Montana for a year, about a year after I graduated from college, specifically in the Whitefish, Kalispell, Columbia Falls area. And I was working in news, and I absolutely hated my job. I was working as a commercial producer, but also a news photog and editor. And balancing two jobs like that are very stressful for $10 an hour wasn't exactly my favorite thing. Uh, but what made it bearable for that year was I had the best skiing of my life. And I really loved the outdoor activities, which growing up in the Adirondacks in New York, it's like, okay, like I understand this. So I'd go back to Montana over and over and over again. That's actually where we got engaged after we moved back home from living out there. I love going into Glacier National Park, but I think the key for traveling there is going there in the off season because it's definitely been discovered, so it's very busy. And if I'm around a lot of people, and I've mentally prepared myself for it, I can handle it. If I'm not expecting busy crowds, I don't handle that well, especially after COVID. I just have a lot of anxiety. But I do want to go back to Ireland again someday. I went there when I was 17 on a quote unquote mission trip. Heavy emphasis on mission because it was pretty cushy. But try dragging in a bunch of 16, 17, 18-year olds into the Guinness brewery, but you can only go as far as the gift shop. That's not very fair. So, needless to say, I would like to go back to redeem myself and be able to do what I would please. So, I would love to go back to Ireland. But where I really want to go is I would love to go to Germany someday for Oktoberfest. I would love to go to Italy. But after going to Greece, I realized that students, no offense if anyone knows an Italian student, but I realized Italian students were everywhere in Greece. It was pretty claustrophobic, and not all of them were very polite. I mean, I'm sure the same thing could be said for a lot of tourists. But I would want to go to Italy when the students are in school, uh, basically drinking Italian wine and pasta. Get, just fill my mouth, please. So definitely going to Italy, Scotland. I'm not sure about England. The idea of England is fun, but there's a lot of stuff as far as how the English hundreds of years ago treated the rest of the world, and I'm like, do I really want to support that? I don't know, but it'll come up. Um, I would really love to travel more of the southwest of the United States just because I haven't really been. I was actually born in California. I haven't been back there since I was about 3, and of course I can't really remember that, but I would love to go visit somewhere in the Southwest, like visiting California again, Nevada, New Mexico, Arizona. I would love to go to New Mexico and go skiing. I didn't even know that was the thing until a few years ago, and I was like, sign me up. Yes, please. uh, yeah, I've never been to Vegas. So definitely exploring more of that. I've explored a lot of the East Coast. And of course, if anyone's listened to Kacey's AMA, she talked about going to Banff. That is definitely on my bucket list. I haven't been there before. And would love to go to Alaska someday. My husband really does love to fish. So he's like, I'll just go exploring in the wilderness. So there's a lot of places I'd love to go. I've been to Mexico. That was where our honeymoon was in Cancun. So I don't know if you could really say like we explored a lot of Mexico, but I mean the all-inclusive resort was fun. Going to Chichen Itza, not chicken pizza. That's a joke from our tour guide. One of the seven wonders of the world was a fantastic experience. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't have one particular favorite place to vacation, but I do have multiple places I'd like to go. And of course, I'd love to go to like Switzerland as well. Thinking about all these places where I'm like, ooh, that's beautiful scenery. Let's go. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else. Yeah, but I would definitely go back to Seattle again and Oregon again. I've been to both of those places, and actually, my sister lives in Seattle, so that's a good excuse to go. But that's, I'm just all over the place. If it's beautiful, count me in. If I can get seafood, count me in. All right, next one. How do you find consistency in the hard moments? I will admit my strength is not necessarily consistency. If I have a set appointment for something, I'm going to stay committed because that's how I was raised. If I'm committing to something, I'm going to commit to it. I mean, granted, when it came to school sports, um, I would commit to 1 year and then I could quit, and it wasn't a big deal. But I find consistency in the hard moments by starting off with something small. Like a lot of our 10-minute classes are such a fantastic way to get moving. And then more often than not, if I'm 100% healthy, I'll find myself taking other classes and be like, okay, I've got this. Or there might be some nights where I'm really, really tired after work and I'll do Alexis's Tuesday and Thursday yoga classes. My husband, Thursday is his first day off of the week, so sometimes it's hit or miss with attending her Thursday class. But starting off with something short or starting off with something that's very gentle, I find that to be a really good way to dip my toe into moving my body because I know my body wants it, but my brain's fighting me because it's like, I'm tired. So that's, I think, where I find it. And also, I have 2 dogs who are shepherds, and they just turned 2. And I'm a firm believer in that our dogs will behave so much better if we give them exercise. And I only say that because I have neighbors who don't necessarily do that with their 7 dogs. But either way, I truly believe in at least exercising your dog or another animal in one way or another. So being able to walk my dogs around the neighborhood really gets me going, especially when the 25-minute walking classes last essentially the entire walk I have. I mean, I might be walking a little bit longer than that, but not by very much. So I think the combination of shorter classes, more gentle classes, and then the walking classes so I can get my dogs to behave are really the big things in getting me moving. And also when it comes to my outside life of working and just the extra activities, I really had to take a hard look at what my life was like and where my energy was being spent. And I worked in a law firm where my commute was nearly an hour one way. And I ended up having to talk to my boss and saying, hey, I can continue working for you, but I can no longer do this commute. It's genuinely harming me because I'd get home at 6 o'clock at night and I'd be exhausted, but I would push myself to do a workout because I knew it's what my body needed after all that time in the car. Plus, it was a desk job. So, really taking an evaluation of what my lifestyle was like and putting myself first was such a massive deal as far as how I handle my mental and my physical health. And I think all of that really has helped me tremendously. And of course, everyone's journeys are up and down and all around and really crazy. But I hope that there are other teammates who can relate to this and probably are like, yeah, oh yeah, we get you. But either way, we are pretty much at the finish line at this point. So thank you for spending time with me, teammate Anna, and thank you as well to just everyone who comes to all my classes. It is so much fun. If you would like to submit questions for further AMA walks, please go to amawalk.thenextfitnessthing.com and check me out on Instagram where I'm constantly posting books at just at my podcast. Just it's so much fun. And I run that with my co-host. Her name is Alexa, but it's Books, Booze, Murder on Instagram. But either way, have a good one, guys. Bye.
Hi team, welcome to the Next Fitness Thing with me, Kacey, coming to you from Atlanta, Georgia. You are here for a 15-minute AMA walk, Ask Me Anything. This is, of course, a no pressure, no goal class, so feel free to do any movement of your choosing as long as it feels right in your body today. So check your laces, start any fitness trackers, and we will get started. So I'm looking at the list of questions that you have, and of course, if you have any other questions that we don't get to today, please feel free to send them to amawalk.thenextfitnessthing.com and we'll see if we can get them the next round. The first question I have is, what's my history with injury? So I have a sort of long-running history of, various sprains and tendinitis. I was an incredibly clumsy child and teenager, so I feel like I probably permanently had something bruised or rolled my ankle or those sorts of things. I also have a moderate hypermobility, so in many of my joints, I tend to go outside of a stable range of motion without realizing it, and I end up getting hurt. So when I was about 14, I tore my labrum, which is the cartilage in the joint in my hip. So I had a decent tear, and I had to stay on crutches for, I think it was about three months without being able to bear weight on that leg at all, in hopes that it would repair without needing surgery. So I was playing softball at the time, and I was also in marching band, so I basically had to drop all my activities. And then after a few months, I was able to do some physical therapy and I started to get some light activity back. It took quite some time for me to get the same sense of comfort of bearing weight on that leg after not being able to bear any weight at all on that leg for such a long time. I was on crutches the whole time. I'm pretty sure my armpits are permanently calloused from being on crutches for that long. But I tend to refer to my ankles as wet noodles. So my ankles roll pretty easily. So I almost always had to have my ankles taped by one of the athletic trainers before games. For a while, I had to tape my ankles and wear a brace on one ankle because I kept rolling it inside the tape, which was somewhat impressive, I think. So yeah, I have that whole history going with various injuries and things going on inside my body. And I think that my biggest learning from all of that is that I have to figure out what's safe and sustainable for my body, and that my exercise and movement plan is not going to look like everyone else's. And I have to learn how to be flexible, not in the hypermobile way, but flexible in the attitude, and honor where I am right now. And that sort of gets into the second question that you had, which was, how do I find consistency in hard moments? I know for me, I often find myself, more in the past than now because I've really been working on it, but I often find myself in an all or nothing thinking. Like, if I can't work out for a day, an hour a day, then why do anything? Or if I'm not able to run a 5K because with the injury history that I have, it's not advised that I do like repetitive motions like that inside my hip joint. So if I can't run a 5K, then what's the point of trying a 5K program or those sorts of things? Or for a while I had something going on with my shoulder. If my shoulder's hurting, then what's the point of trying anything? That sort of thing. It can be very demoralizing if you let it, and you can let it distract you from this idea that there is a point. And sometimes the point is just that you enjoy the movement that you're doing, whatever it is that day. And so it became important to me that it really wasn't a choice that I was going to do something. The choice was, what was I going to find fulfilling for that day? The only time I really give myself the choice to do absolutely nothing is if I don't feel well. So I have migraines or, anything else going on. If I'm sick, I won't force myself to do something that isn't right for my body at all. But you can usually find something to do. So even if that's 5 minutes of stretching, or if it means I just try to be present in my body as I walk around and feel mindfully as I walk around my house, or, all those sorts of things. Is there something that I can do to get a little movement or get outside or any of those things today, even if today doesn't look like what I did yesterday or the day before? So that would be one of my biggest things. Is I, of course, still have goals, but I had to kind of divorce myself of the idea that if I can't follow some perfect, rigid, exact method of training consistently, then like everyone else did, which I don't know who that person is that I imagined did that, but, that everyone else did, then maybe it's not worth trying it now. And that, like I said, that doesn't mean I don't have goals or things that I aim for. And in terms of trying to specifically how I stay consistent, like we talked about, I often really don't give myself the choice to do nothing. The choice is, can I go for a walk for 5 minutes? But I find that putting workouts on my calendar or setting up a time in my day that is always for whatever I'm going to do that day helps be more consistent. For instance, I know for a fact that when I log off of work, I'm going to get up and put on workout clothes and I'm going to do something. Or maybe I won't put on workout clothes. Maybe I'm in my pajamas. But regardless, for me, that's usually when I try to put activity in, is after I finish my day job. So putting it in a consistent time, putting it on my calendar, committing to it, signing up for the classes in advance so that is my schedule that I have, helps keep me accountable and helps me stay consistent in that way. I also find that the challenge program, signing up for those and committing to those, having the emails that keep you excited and engaged with the programs, all of those help me stay consistent. And then knowing that you guys, the teammates, are there and that you'll notice when I'm not in class, and the trainers notice when you've missed things that you're usually there for, that they wonder where you are. Those things all help me stay consistent. But in the moments when things are like really hard, so I've had moments where it's just really challenging to want to get out of bed. I have to remind myself that literally anything is going to be better than nothing. And that for me personally, especially for my mental health, I have to do something. I just feel better if I've been present and done something with my body that day. There is something that I can do. Even, like I said, even if it's just getting up and doing a few stretches. I often find that snowballs things. That motivation isn't just going to hit me out of nowhere. I do it because I know I'm going to feel better. And then once I start doing it, I do feel better. And then it sort of snowballs from there into, well, maybe I could do more than this 5 minutes. Maybe I could go for a little 10-minute walk. And so you really just have to, that first step is the choice. Do you want to let yourself have the choice of doing absolutely nothing outside of medical issues or not feeling well and that sort of thing? That's how I at least keep myself consistent. So the next question is a little lighter. Where is my favorite place to go on vacation? Or where have I always wanted to go and haven't yet? I think my favorite place I have been so far, this is a really tough question. My favorite place that I've been so far is probably Banff in Alberta, Canada. I'm going to cheat and give you two. So the second would be Iceland. It's super difficult for me to pick between those two. They both are, it's funny, they're both outdoorsy vacations. And if you know me fairly well, or maybe not even that well, it's not like I hide it. I'm not the most outdoorsy person, so it's kind of amusing that those are the vacations that I think of. But they're just absolutely stunning. I think in part is just how beautiful it is there. So Iceland has this very, like, the geography is just so different. Everything is so different there versus at least where I live. They don't have trees in most places because the wind will rip them out before they're able to grow. Glaciers. Having a lagoon filled with glaciers that are melting and come up on the beach. The wind there is crazy. But also the people in Iceland were just so kind and welcoming. The crime rate is incredibly low there. The tour guide that we were on, we had a van that drove the whole 8 days, and it was a small kind of group tour sort of thing. The tour guide would very often pull to the side of the road to take us on this little scenic thing that he knew was there, leave the car running with the keys in the ignition and the door open, and walk away from a highway with the car like that. And we would come back, and not only would no one have stopped, nothing would be there. Like, the car would still be there. And I don't know about where you live, but that was kind of astonishing. So that, and like things like the Blue Lagoon, it definitely was probably one of the most memorable vacations I've been on. We also hiked a glacier. We were able to go inside of a glacier, which was super cool. See a little bit of the Northern Lights. It's definitely a very, very cool place, and I would totally go back. The amount of waterfalls they had that were just incredible was amazing. The tied for first, is probably Banff, like I said. And I went last year with my very best friend. We've been friends since we were 12. And we had planned this as like, it was kind of spontaneous. Usually I plan my vacations like really far in advance. And by really far, I mean like almost a year in advance. And this one, we organized it, I think, a few months before we went. So for those of you who are actually spontaneous, you're probably laughing, but that is spontaneous for me. But Banff is, you can see pictures on Instagram all over the place. It's just stunning. They're glacier lakes, so they're super blue. It almost looks like they're photoshopped, how blue they are, but they are not. They're not photoshopped, I mean. We did a hike to see Lake Louise from up high, and it was just, well, first of all, the hike was something else. So if you have altitude issues, I was lucky that I brought my inhaler because it was a struggle. But the view was totally worth it. I like to tell people that the last mile I did purely out of spite because I wanted to see the view from up there, and I was going to make it even if I like ran out of oxygen trying, I guess. It was beautiful. I think one of my favorites, though, was Pado Lake, which actually looks like a wolf. So from most angles, you can kind of see the profile of a wolf's head. It's super cool. The other thing that was really surprising to me was that there were so many food options that were not like traditional food. So they had so many vegan options. They had so many gluten-free, allergy-friendly options. And when I went, I was still on a fairly restrictive diet. So I was really nervous that I wouldn't be able to find anything to eat because it's in the middle of nowhere. and I was not expecting there to be such an inclusive dining options. The little town of Banff is so cute, and the restaurants and all the people are super nice. It's I was not expecting it to be that way. And then besides the lakes and that sort of thing, the drive down the Trans-Canada Highway, I guess technically up, so driving from Banff to Jasper, which is a national park that's very similar, right next to it, through the Canadian Rockies is one of the most scenic highways in the world. So it tends to get rated super high on scenic drives. The Canadian Rockies are just crazy majestic. So it was definitely something that I could see myself going back there and making some kind of regular trip. And the funny thing is, my best friend, the first day we got there, she was like, I don't know, you just like have a Banff vibe. So I guess she thought that I fit in there. I don't know about living there in the snow, but it was definitely beautiful when we went in October. You can also see the Northern Lights there sometimes as well, so that's another thing that it really has going for it. This year, my major trip that my family and I are taking are going to Alaska to see Northern Lights. So that is on my next list, and I have lots of places in the U.S. I want to go, but definitely other places in Europe and things like that are on my ever-growing travel list. Funnily enough, team, that is all the time that I have. I hope that you enjoyed this little AMA walk. I had so much fun thinking of answers to all your questions. Like I said at the beginning, you can send any more questions that you have for us at amawalk.thenextfitnessthing.com. Otherwise, grab some water and perhaps a stretch from the replay library. I'd love to see you live with me for a walk at 5:30 p.m. Eastern or 2:30 p.m. PST sometime. Hope to see you soon.